Hello, and thank you for tuning in to today's webinar with Panorama Consulting Group. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Thomason, Pre-Sales Director at IFS. We're here to get his advice on navigating the complex software requirements for project-based service companies. Thanks for joining us today, Chris.
You're welcome.
Before we get started, we at Panorama want to thank the viewers of our webinars, and we'll be giving away a free consulting session to the first 3 respondents after today's webinar. Stay tuned all the way to the end of the webinar to get some more information on this opportunity. With Panorama Consulting Group being an independent niche consulting firm, we specialize in business transformation and ERP system implementations for mid to large size private and public sector organizations worldwide. We also specialize in OCM strategies and business process management, among many other solutions you can see here. The biggest industries we work alongside are within manufacturing, professional services, and technology. But we deal with many sectors and clientele. Speaking of our client portfolio includes many well-known local, national, and global customers across multiple industries. We also offer a deep and comprehensive ERP experience with hundreds of available packages that we have evaluated and implemented for our clients. So, to get started here, Chris, please tell us a little bit about yourself and IFS.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, my name is Chris Thomason. I'm Pre-Sales Director for IFS. Working for IFS for almost 20 years, and especially in the last decade, I've been mainly working in what I call project-based solutions, and that ranges from shipbuilding companies in the oil and gas industry, manufacturing companies with let's say with a heavy manufacturing industry, like engineer-to-order situation, everything where we see a project and where also the asset is an important aspect. So IFS, what's IFS? IFS develops and delivers cloud enterprise software for companies around the world. Basically, we focus on 5 different industries. It's aviation and defense, it's energy, utilities, resources, engineering, construction, manufacturing, and service. So they all have to do with projects, manufacturing, supply chain, service, and of course, we back that up with finance and HR solutions. That's what we do. We have about 4,500 people worldwide working for IFS, and also we have a partner ecosystem that supports us in implementing those solutions at our customers.
All right, thanks for explaining that a little bit and telling us about yourself. So let's get some basic terminology kind of covered here. Chris, what is a project-based service company exactly?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, basically, it's you can define it as services that are project-oriented and often use labor, material, and equipment. And you can think about companies in the maritime industry or in the gas industry, for example, installing and heavy lifting of a topside for the oil and gas industry, or decommissioning a platform, for example. If you also talk about the maritime and oil and gas industry, but it can also be installing a turbine for an energy customer, or implementing a control system into a new building for a real estate developer. So it's all about projects spanning multiple months, so that have a long duration, where you have different tasks that are dependent on each other. And yeah, at the end, project is considered successful if you as a company deliver the project on time, on scope, and on budget towards your customer. So we're not talking about manufacturing something, it's really providing a service in the project-based context.
Okay, so project-based service companies aren't only in one sector like manufacturing?
No, it's across industries like infrastructure, medical, technology, banking, telecommunications. So it's across all kinds of industries where you find those kind of companies.
All right, so what kind of challenges do project-based service companies face?
Yeah, if you look at the process of a project-based service company, it often starts with setting an accurate scope and price. You can imagine there's often a tender process. You are invited to bid for a certain tender, and those tenders are very competitive. So you have to compete with different contractors, and the main challenge is you don't want to overestimate the price, but you also don't want to underestimate. because you don't want to win all those underestimated bids, of course, because then you will become very unprofitable. So it's really about, in the first phase of the tender, is setting the accurate scope and price, and then you have a quoted margin, so you know and you can predict how much money you will earn on this project. That's the first phase, and that's something that you need to support. Then the second thing is that you need to translate that scope into an executable solution. And there's also always some kind of tension between sales and delivery in the project organization. So we have a quoted price, but then if you hand it over to the delivery organization, sometimes that handover is very poorly managed, and that can have a serious impact on your margin. And that's what you see also in the picture. The planned margin can be less than the quoted margin, and you want to try to avoid that. And you want to have the right tools and the right processes in place to make sure sales and delivery is in line. And then the next thing comes into place. A project is often very complex, and there's a lot of activities that take place. Those activities are dependent of each other, so you have a critical part in your project, and you want to make sure that material and labor availability is there. Because if an activity on your critical part is delayed, then the project gets delayed, and that can have a serious impact on the profitability of the project. Often penalties occur and things like that. And then the fourth pillar is about getting the right people with the right skills at the right time. That's also a challenge, and project managers tend to get the people they know, but everybody wants to have the same people in the project. So you need the right resource planning systems to support you in deciding who do we need for this project. You need the right balance of skills in your project, and so that's the fourth pillar. And the fifth one is then it comes to execution. And during an execution of a project, you always have to deal with changes. It can be scope changes coming from the customers. It can be things that go wrong and that you have to react on. So during the lifetime of the project, you really have to make sure that you are on time, on schedule, tracking your progress, tracking your earned value, and managing change in the right way. I think those are the 5 most important challenges that project-based service providers capture of a phase when they execute their projects. And then at the end, you don't want to end up with a negative margin. You want to end up with doing better than your quoted margin, and that's something that really has a huge impact on executing these kind of projects.
Okay. So with these business challenges in mind, why do project-based service companies struggle to find software solutions?
Yeah, what you see in a project-based service provider is that it is very diverse. So they need all kinds of elements, software elements, like they need proper project management tooling. They need tooling for service and maintenance activities. You can imagine the equipment that they use in executing the project. That has to be available. Equipment can break down, so you have to have a solution for that. There is manufacturing involved. Some of the equipment needs to be manufactured. There's construction involved, and there are a lot of supporting processes that needs to be supported, like finance, HR. Health and safety is an important aspect in those kinds of industries. What you also see is that some of the service providers have land-based business. Some of them have offshore business. Some of them have both onshore and offshore. So that's something that you need to manage with your application landscape. And next to that, there is let's say a low volume of highly complex projects. And that can span multiple disciplines and also multiple geographic locations. If it's a really company that operates in an international context, we have multiple legal entities, and you have to bring that together into one project. So that's the that's one side of the business. And the other one can also be business that is very easy, repetitive, with a high volume of jobs. So you need to both manage those complex projects with the low volume, but also that highly repetitive kind of business. And in all those, in both of these processes, the planning and allocation of people, equipment, and material, that's key. That's the key thing you want to manage. And what I see is that in those complex hybrid environments, most of those software solutions are not able to meet all those requirements. So they can support parts of those businesses, but there's no solution spanning all those elements that you will see in a project-based service provider. So what I typically see is that companies have a very disjointed business systems landscape. And you see an example over here where you have solutions for project planning, for equipment, maintenance and rental, for non-conformity reporting, for risk management, snacking. And that's more on the project-based side. On the right side, you see more other things like RCM, reliability-centered maintenance, risk-based analytics, the asset management part, and things like that. And you see some supporting processes like general ledger, procurement, cash management, expenses, time and expenses. And what I see that there are different solutions with all kinds of connections between those different applications. And if you look at those applications, that's not only business applications being used, but also a lot of Excel, custom-made solutions by using Access and things like that. And that's what I typically see in these kinds of businesses.
Okay, so it looks like they have a kind of a lot of different services you might be needing that's not all wrapped in one necessarily. So what kind of solution are they looking for?
Yeah, if you maybe it's not the solution, but what they are looking for is one accurate version of the truth. So they want to be on top of the business. They want to measure how they are performing. What are they want to measure their KPIs. How are we doing? So right now, often by using this disjointed application landscape, it often comes with inaccurate information, and they want to avoid that. And the one thing they need is one accurate version of the truth. So not different Excel sheets telling them different versions of the truth. That's the first thing. And for that, they need an integrated business system landscape. And I don't say they need one solution; they need an integrated solution. I think that's an important key, because what we see further on, it's not one solution that makes up the Kurt, I will do it over again. So first of all, it's not about the system that they're looking for. They're looking for one version of the truth. So they want to try to avoid inaccurate information. So what you typically see that they are using different Excel sheets, telling them giving them different versions of the truth. That's the one thing they want to avoid. And for that they need an integrated business system landscape. So that means they need to connect the dots. They need to connect the different applications they're using to support their processes. And looking for an integrated business system landscape, they often look for what they typically call a digital core. Yes, and that means they need a solution where they can capture best practice and repeatable data and processes, where they can have an integrated risk management process. Because if you talk about projects, it's not only about cost and revenue and managing the timely delivery of the project. It's also managing the risks. What kind of risk can occur? What kind of mitigation action do we need to take to mitigate those risks and things like that. They're also looking for integrated CRM and bid management, because the project often starts in the early phase with an opportunity. So they want to be predictable. They want to see their pipeline, and what they have right now is often poor pipeline and marketing support, and they want to improve on that. They want to have an integrated CRM and bid management process. maybe the most important one, they want to also have an integrated resource management process, because projects, it's about resources. It's about labor, people with the right skills. It's about the right equipment. It's about material need for executing the project. So that certainly should be part of that solution. And then, of course, they will also want to harmonize processes. What you typically also see is that a lot of these companies have grown through mergers and acquisitions. So they have taken over different companies. They have their own systems. They have their own way of working. And that's typically what you are trying to avoid, especially if you're running global projects. And the harmonization of processes, if you work in a global environment, that's the most important thing that the next generation project-based service company needs. And then if you do that and you have created your digital core, you have defined your process, you have your harmonized process, you have your repeatable data, then you can also make digital a strategy and determine, what can digital bring for our kind of business? How can we make use of IoT or remote assistance to improve our offering to our customer? And because that's what it's all about. And then also we want to go from a reactive to a plan-driven approach. So we don't want to react on a question of a customer. We want to be proactive. We want to have a plan. We have a project plan. We want to stick to the plan. That's typically things that we want to achieve. And by doing that, that's I think that's the ultimate outcome. The high project performance. We want to improve our project performance. We want to improve our margins, our delivery towards our customer, our handover to the customer. That's ultimately what we're looking for in a system landscape, basically. So if you take a step back, then research shows that almost 10% of every dollar is wasted due to poor project performance. And only 58% of organizations fully understand the value of project management. And that's what the Project Management Institute has investigated. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. So I think there's a world to win for a lot of companies.
All right. So when selecting a software, what should a project-based service company consider? Like, what are the base requirements?
Yeah, I think there's 6 fundamental ERP requirements that you have to take into account. The first of all, maybe the most important one. We need to remember that cash is king. And if you're doing a project, you want to know and you want to measure: do we need to finance the project, or are we actually earning money and getting the cash into the project along the way? So project cash flow planning, project cash flow forecasting is a very important topic when looking at an ERP solution, basically. And as I already mentioned, proactively manage risk. So risk management is an integral part of doing a project. So you want to have an embedded and dedicated risk management module. You want to identify risks. You want to make a prediction on the impact of a risk on the project, and you want to have appropriate mitigation actions against those risks. That's the second one. And the third one is also you need to manage your indemnities and insurances and make sure that track the expiration around bank guarantees and insurance. That's also an important thing. When doing a project, you need to understand how you can manage your cost and work breakdown structure. And that's something that you also need to ask your ERP vendor. Because often the cost breakdown structure gives you something to manage your project budgeting and monthly forecasting process. And the cost breakdown structure is something that you can use to compare the one project to each other. The other thing is you also need, of course, you need to manage your work breakdown structure, and that's often different from project to project. So both the cost breakdown structure and the work breakdown structure gives you the ability to meet your customer expectations while preserving a consistent approach across those multiple projects. And so cost breakdown structure, supporting the work breakdown structure, doing your project budgeting and monthly forecasting, those are typical elements that you need to look for when you look at the solution when selecting software for a project-based service company. Then the fifth one, we already talked also about that. We talked about resource management in general, but the equipment management is an important is also an important part. So managing equipment, renting out equipment to a project, maintaining the equipment, make sure it won't break down, doing preventive and corrective maintenance on equipment, viewing the availability of equipment on a global scale. If you're in the maritime business, it's about, for example, about vessels that you need to use, for example, for lifting a topside, for example. Is the vessel available? Is the supporting equipment available? That's something that you really need. And, next to, let's say, real ERP requirements, hard requirements, you also need a partner that understands your business, I think, that understands your challenges, has global customers, successful operating both in land and marine settings, and that's also an important thing. So that's what you need to look for, ensuring that the software vendor can fulfill all those requirements of your business. That's an important thing when looking at a solution for a software, when looking at a solution for a project-based software company.
All right, so with all these challenges and considerations kind of in mind, how does IFS support project-based service companies, and what kind of systems and solutions do you guys provide?
Yeah, our solution is called IFS Cloud for Project-Based Service, not surprisingly. And what we have, of course we have a strong project management solution, and with that solution we support proper resource management, where we can optimize asset utilization, but also support for finance, human resource, quality, health and safety, etc. So project-based service companies need a combined project lifecycle and asset management solution. I think those two pillars, those are the most important ones. Supporting project, but also supporting the asset part of the solution. And that's essential to manage contracts successfully, and that also should include features such as project cost control, planning, progress tracking, risk management, and project accounting. And at the end, it's really about proper resource management, the optimization of assets, the optimization of the utilization of assets, and integrating processes like finance, HR, and quality, health, and safety. So we do that with what we call with a solution map. This is basically how our solution looks like. And on the top, we have the business process, starting from marketing and sales, to establishing a project, to planning a project, to doing proper resource allocation, and to execute. And of course, during the life cycle of the project, we also need to build the project. And below that, we will find how we will support that process. So what we see on top is we have a proper CRM and contract management module. So that means that we can start early in the phase, defining the opportunities, what kind of bids do we expect. We can support the estimating process, doing a bill of quantities and defining the scope, capturing contract variations, retentions, and we can support all kinds of billing in that area. And when we have set the project, of course, we can capture the variations, but then we can define the project, or maybe there are multiple projects within that contract. And in that project, we can define a work and a cost breakdown structure. We can plan it. We have our own planning tools, but we can also integrate to planning tools like Primavera, often used, or MS Project. We can do our cost and we can do our budgeting and control, our resource planning. So the project management, that's really the heart of the solution. That's the umbrella, and below that we have the departmental activities. So from the project, we get material and logistical activities. We get labor that we need to plan on those project activities. And of course, there's a tight integration to HR in that respect. And we have our equipment management that we can define, that we can view globally, that we can plan, where we can do maintenance on those pieces of equipment. And everything we do is captured in finance. And that means whatever we do, when we use material, when we rent out equipment to the project, when we register hours on the project, that all goes back to the project so that we can see the progress on the earned value on the project. And next to that, we have support for things like quality, health and safety, when we can do proper incident management and risk assessments, where we have strategic procurement, and things like document management integrated, human capital management, risk management. So we have a solution that can capture all those important processes for project-based service. Do we have it all? No, but as I said, we can integrate to tools like Primavera. That's a far better tool for doing project planning than IFS, of course. So we need to be open to make sure that we can support the customer in the right way. And of course, it's nice to talk about functionality and requirements and things that we can support. But we also have to make it very easy for the end user. So what you see, if you look at IFS, that we have what we call lobbies. Basically, we have role and process-based dashboards that cover the entire applications, so that you really can see, I'm a project manager, I can see how my projects are performing. I can manage by exception. I can drill down to, I can see 3 of my 4 projects are performing well. The one is not doing so well. What's the issue? Why do we have? Why do we spend more money on a project than we have budgeted? Things like that. That's what we try to do. Really empower the end user to make to give them the information that they need to perform their daily job. And we have pre-packaged that solution into an industry-specific end-to-end solution. And that's what you see here, our end-to-end solution for a project-based service provider, starting from CRM, going to a contract, to project, to engineering, to procurement, to equipment, to repair, to service, and all the supporting processes. I think that's what we bring to the table. That's the kind of value that we can deliver to our customers, basically. So at the end, if you look at IFS Cloud, that's the name of our solution. What we provide is one single product where you can find support for projects, for manufacturing, for supply chain, for asset management, for service, etc., etc. The second thing is that we provide industry depth, really deep vertical functionality, but also the expertise. So we have people within our organization that really understand project-based service companies. We also provide embedded innovations like remote assistance. For example, you can imagine a piece of equipment breaks down, you will send an engineer to repair it, and they can use their mobile device and with remote support. Maybe they don't have the right skills, but they can call somebody in the office. You can use augmented reality, and they can the guy in the office can see and help you in repairing the piece of equipment, for example. Same things for things like IoT or artificial intelligence. We provide those kinds of innovation embedded in the solution. Of course, the solution is also open, so that means that you can also provide third-party solutions for that. We offer the customer's choice. You can run the solution in the cloud, as many of the customers do, but you can still use it on-premise. And yeah, last but certainly not least, as I already said, it's great to have all those kinds of functionality, but it's really important to give the end user the right for user experience, that they really can benefit from all the functions and features that solution will bring to you as a customer, basically. So that's basically in a nutshell what IFS can provide for project-based service companies.
Okay, that's awesome. The end user experience is sometimes overlooked on some platforms. So it's definitely appreciated to have that good experience there. To finish things up here, and for those who stayed the entire time, we want to reward the first 3 respondents with a free consulting hour with our digital transformation experts. Go to panorama-consulting.com and enter the code free consultation, along with filling out the how we can help form section of the form there. So again, we want to thank Chris for your insight, advice, solutions, and we really appreciate your time. It looks like we do have a couple of writing questions from the viewers here. So I'll go ahead and get these started here. Let me look at the first one. All right, can you give an example of a project-based service company implementing IFS Cloud at the moment, and what were the main reasons a company selected IFS?
Yeah, I will give an example of one of my customers. The customer is called Fugro. And basically, that's a geodata specialist. So they do all kinds of investigations, and they're geo investigations. So they basically measure the Earth, and they do that as well as onshore as offshore. So they have all kinds of vessels, for example, that work on that work offshore and do a lot of investigation, for example, for oil and gas companies, but also for energy companies that build wind farms on sea. So they investigate the seabed, how that's structured, and what kind of, for example, if you drill for oil, you need to know what kind of rock bed you will encounter, things like that. That's what they basically what they do. So this is really a project-based service provider that has very complex international projects, but they also have a lot of land-based business that's very simple. They go to a specific site, do some kind of investigation, provide the data towards the customer, and that's their let's say that's an example of their land-based business. So when they looked at IFS, they immediately recognized themselves. The end-to-end process that we provided, that's similar the way they work. We had a very much a cultural fit. We also had the references and the peers in their industry working with IFS, and I think we were able to translate their requirements into their scenarios, into their solution, so they could really recognize themselves, and we could really prove that we have the experience, have the solution to support their kind of business.
So it looks like we have time for one more. This one is, what does the digital transformation journey look like for a project-based service provider?
If you look at the digital transformation journey, I think that's of course that's different for every company. It's also depending on where you are right now and where you want to move to. But if you look to project-based service providers, there are several things, there are several scenarios that you can think of. For example, I already talked about equipment management, for example. And equipment management is an important aspect of the business of a project-based service provider. That's something that they use in their daily work. So if it's a maritime business, it's about vessels and all kinds of other equipment. It can be ROVs and stuff like that. If it's land-based business, it can be trucks and things. For Fugro, so they talk about core penetration testing systems and things like that. So, and if you talk about digital transformation, what we really can bring to them is to give them the ability to use, for example, remote assistance, to use IoT, use sensor data coming from the vessels or from the other equipment to do predictive maintenance, to use artificial intelligence to do predictive maintenance. So that's just a simple use case for them that where they can really benefit, because the availability of equipment, of course, is key to them. If an equipment piece breaks down, that can jeopardize the project or jeopardize the activity within the project. And so what we can bring to them is we can provide them a digital platform, that's IFS Cloud, where we have open APIs and where we have the embedded innovations like remote assistance and IoT, but where they also can use other kinds of innovations or technologies that they can use on their digital journey. So it's not a simple So as I said, the digital journey is different for different customers. But what we can do is give you the platform, give you the technology to make it happen, basically.
Okay, well, appreciate that answer. Again, we want to thank Chris for all your insight, advice, and solutions that you've kind of provided here. We do appreciate your time, and we hope you had fun too. If you'd like to inquire about Panorama's comprehensive services, feel free to visit our website at panorama-consulting.com, or you can reach out directly to our Director of Innovation, Alan Sultan, at his email shown here. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.